Greetings again, slot car enthusiasts. Not so long ago, I made a video at the request of distant friends who couldn't in person get to see my work on a Scalextric layout which I've been thinking about for around 70 years. Off and on, you understand, not all the time. To my astonishment, that video has now had over 4,000 views on YouTube and a very large number of charming, friendly and helpful comments. Thank you for all of those and for your interest. It's very heartening in these times of aggression, division, cruelty, the misuse of power and other innumerable and unfathomable ways in which human beings seem to set out to hurt each other. Very heartening, as I say, to discover folk who are kind and thoughtful and who are simply enthusiastically enjoying a harmless hobby. To get the full picture, please do visit that first video, but here's a brief recap. I started with a 9x5 ping pong table and a lot of second-hand track. Then I got overexcited about modelling and the diorama aspect. With the original ping pong table, there are just a few minor improvements to what you may have seen in the first video. I suppose the most important is the inclusion of an Arc Pro control system right next to a new start-finish gantry which I got from those wonderfully helpful folk at Magnetic Racing, whose MDF flat pack buildings and trackside constructions are so perfectly designed. To be quite frank, I don't entirely understand how the Arc Pro and its app works. That's partly my incompetence and ageing reluctance to get to grips with anything to do with modern technology, and it's also partly because it's currently the modelling which is feeding my enthusiasm. I intend to get round to more racing using the Scalextric app in due course. There are a few more little people dotted about. I've now painted up over 150 in all, and oh yes, I bought a load of used tyres on eBay which I painted red and white as barriers here and there. I wonder whether my little piles of pairs of tyres might be better in 3s or even 4s. Do let me know if you have a view on that. Also, how any of you use the Arc Pro and its app in a solo way. I can't seem to get it to even time a lap. Here is what the second ping pong table looked like when we last met on video, along with a couple of laps of the whole original layout. So what have I been doing since then, while my family haven't been noticing where I was? While the grass has been growing in all the recent rains and not getting cut, when I haven't been watching Rory McIlroy and Justin Rose losing several major golf tournaments, when I haven't been watching the England football team losing yet again and using up the nation's fingernails in the process. And in those spare hours, while the Labour Party has been winning elections in the UK, the French have been making themselves thoroughly politically confused, and the American nation has been trying to decide whether they want themselves represented on the world stage by an amiable geriatric or an orange-coloured golf cheat with poor hearing in one ear and leaving the entire watching world shaking their heads in bewilderment. Well, to begin with, my embryonic collection of cars was getting in my way. So I built a little shelf on which to store them. That gives me the space to build a pit lane. I've put in a bit of track lane and I've already called on Magnetic Racing for the buildings. You can see one already. The planning is easy, but the fulfilment will involve lots more of those little grey plastic people which I will have to paint up. It's a slow and tortuous job, so I'm in for lots of listening pleasure as I crank up the music to accompany the work. Just above the pit lane, I've placed another spectator stand. Somebody asked me how the spectators could possibly get there, so I made a little hole and called it a spectator tunnel. I must remember to find another end to it somewhere. Little touches like the ice cream cellar are fun. Here's a big Pepsi Cola sign, which will light up by means of a 12-volt system. Nearby is a light-up advertising half gantry. In due course, I want to put in track lighting. Does anybody have advice on which and how the various magnetic racing track light options work best? But that's all for the future. Planning is half the fun, I find, letting ideas gradually ferment in the mind and imagination. I thought I'd try making some rocks. For cascading and tumbling rock formations, folks seem to use that squirty foam and then fashion it to shape. I've gone for something a bit less ambitious, using foam sheets cut to shape and then coated with Vallejo Diorama FX, a mixture of ground texture and earth texture. This rocky outcrop round here seemed a bit flat, so I joined up a couple of ideas. I've noticed that lots of viewers of my first video are in the US and Australia. Greetings to you all, by the way. So it may be that you've never heard of Jeremy Clarkson. He has been an amusing personality in the UK for some years and was originally a serious petrol head, singing the praises of enormous gas-guzzling cars, much to the disapproval of the ecological lobby. But of late he's changed his tune and bought a farm around which he's built a television series. On my travels, I found myself near that farm and dropped by to have a little snoop. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the queue to visit his diddly squat farm shop was over an hour long, and people were eventually emerging simply with a bottle of beer and a pork pie. Crazy stuff. So I left smartish and did something more sensible with my time. By the way, diddly squat, for those who may not have come across the expression, means bugger all, and is intended to describe Jeremy's anticipated income from farming. There's quite a big movement in the UK against fossil fuels, just as there is across the world, quite rightly, and I'm afraid our slot car hobby, celebrating motorsport, represents an inordinate and currently unfashionable use of petrol. So it would be quite natural that the Just Stop Oil protesters might turn up at my racetrack, and there they would find Jeremy Clarkson trying to work out if he's a petrol head or a farmer. You can see that his particular enthusiasm was, for a while, pigs, and of course riding about on his tractor. This far corner of my layout is kind of finished, with landscaping and trees, and I've made a tunnel complex to suit the track. On the top will be Magnetic Racing's race headquarters and, I suppose, more spectator. That will leave a great big empty area down here. Anybody got any ideas? By the way, just a little side note about the trees, which I originally tried to get from a dreadful supplier called House of Hobbies. They took my money and have never been back in touch. If you look at Trustpilot, it seems they've done the same thing to lots of other customers too. Don't dream of using them. So, in conclusion, here's a couple more laps of the track and I'll bid you au revoir. Maybe the sun will shine in the coming weeks. We've got a family holiday too, so it'll be well into the autumn before my next video. Meanwhile, happy modelling and racing, and once again, warm thanks for all your nice, enthusiastic and supportive comments.